Thanks for being here today for this rundown of my top 10 favourite MCU movies in preparation for Avengers Endgame. Now, just to confirm, I'm going to see Avengers Endgame on the opening night at midnight, but I'm also seeing Infinity War straight before it. There's a back-to-back going on at my local cinema, and so I'm going to be watching about 6 hours of Avengers from about 9 p.m. all the way through to about 3 a.m. on the launch day. So that's going to be fun. I'm not sure how well my sort of sleep patterns are going to hold up for that, but I'll take on a few Red Bulls and stuff like that and try and keep myself a little bit, you know, hyper and whatever else. The good thing is that the cinema's completely full, so there's no space left in the cinema that I'm in, and that should be a good crowd. It's 3D IMAX. It should be really, really good fun, and I'm looking forward to seeing Thor with Stormbreaker again. I'm looking forward to that. It should be really, really good fun. Now, top 10 Marvel movies in the MCU. First thing I wanted to do was, in looking through the list, because it's like 20 odd films now, the first thing I did was I eliminated anything that I thought was just not good and kind of ruthlessly cut out anything that I didn't want to, you know, to talk about at any length whatsoever. So the kind of films that I simply instantly binned was The Incredible Hulk, Iron Man 2, Iron Man 3, Thor the Dark World, Doctor Strange. I like that film, but I kind of cut it out because, yeah, it's not really all that. Ant-Man and the Wasp, I kind of dumped that one out as well. And those are kind of the films that I ditched because they simply, you know, there's definitely no way they were ever going to make it into contention. Now, of the other films, I went through them, had a little look at them, and basically arranged them in my top 10 order. So starting first, we have number 10, Black Panther. Now, I really, really enjoyed Black Panther, except for when I went to see it in the cinema, some of the quite poor CGI at the end of the film. The fight between, the end fight between the two Black Panthers, I thought was quite weak, and, you know, it was another example of seeing a, let's say, a hero fight a baddie who is essentially exactly the same. Same power set, same move set, same look. It was unbelievably the same. We've seen this in other films like Ant-Man, where you had the Yellow Jacket, and I really wasn't, you know, I really wasn't that impressed by the end of the film. The start of the film looked really, really good. I think it had a great story, it was fun, it was interesting, and it's made my top 10. But Black Panther for me is a film that was a bit let down, I think, by maybe some of their ambitions and by, you know, some of the CGI. Introduced some really, really good characters. Shuri, for example, is great. Danai Gurira is fantastic in her role, and I liked it. I wasn't fussed about the sort of, you know, the big armored rhinos and all that kind of stuff. I felt that it kind of jumped the shark slightly at times, but it was interesting. It was fun, and, you know, it had its sort of nice moments. But in the context of the wider MCU, nothing special for me. Good film, did a good job, very successful, but just a good film for me. Number 9 is Spiderman Homecoming. Now, I really wasn't that fussed about Spider-Man. Again, even after Civil War, I didn't think that Spider-Man was going to do anything that would be particularly interesting for me. I liked the first two Tobey Maguire Spider-Man. I liked the first Andrew Garfield Spider-Man, and I think it's a character that we've seen an awful lot of over the last few years, and I wasn't particularly excited about seeing more of that character. Now, having said that, I think Tom Holland's a charming little git. He's really, really sort of, you know, cute and fun and a nice, just a nice all-round kid. And that comes across. I like the addition of Aunt May in this one. I really do like Marissa Tomei as Aunt May. I think it's interesting to have this sort of, I guess, hot aunt type character, which is very much a departure. And it's nice that it is a departure. Somebody who can flirt with Tony Stark. That's fun. It's interesting. And I liked that within the film. I thought the introduction of the Vulture, for me, Michael Keaton is an outstanding villain. I think he's You know, he's really captivating and menacing, even when he's just being himself, not necessarily being the character of the Vulture. Just being himself, I thought he was, you know, he was threatening, and he had that kind of Michael Keaton edge, and that was really nice to see. So I put Spider-Man number 9. Great entry for the character. I'm really looking forward to Far From Home. Interesting to see what happens when they go to Europe and kind of get into all sorts of European shenanigans, etc. That should be fun. Looking forward to it. Now, my number 8 is a brand new entry, Captain Marvel. I really enjoy Captain Marvel. The film had a lot to live up to, huge amount of, let's say, weight on its shoulders from people desperately hoping it would fail, whether that's because you don't like Brie Larson, or if it's because you want to see this feminist propaganda suffering at the cinema. Whatever the motivations for people wanting to fail, it was great to see that it didn't. It's great to see people going out and flocking to see it, making it easily one of the most successful MCU films of all time, and certainly the single most successful debut in terms of box office numbers of any Marvel character in the MCU. I think that may even count generally, but it's outside the MCU. It's a fantastic addition to the kind of overall canon. And I was really most impressed by how they managed to slot Captain Marvel, a character who predates most of the Avengers. She predates most of them, except Steve Rogers. Slotting her into that 90s time period was very, very nicely done. It was quite on the nose with its musical beats, but it's my music, it's my stuff, it's what I grew up with. So for me, it resonates, and it was fun, it was interesting. And like I said, my wife and daughter, they laughed like idiots whilst watching the film and had a really, really great time. I can't really argue with it. I'm interested to see what they do next. I think, just on a purely kind of, visuals level, I love the visual of Captain Marvel. The costumes, the outfit, the hair, everything. I love it. It's a amazing kind of cosplay thing, and I think it's great to see this character kind of flying through space and doing something that, to be frank, we really haven't seen anyone in the MCU do. It's nice to have something again new coming into the MCU, and for that, get to number 8 for me. Now, my number 7 is Captain America: Winter Soldier. This kind of spy film type thing that they've been doing in the MCU, this idea of drafting in different genres of films, I thought was really, really well done. I love the addition or the bringing back of Bucky and, reintroducing the Winter Soldier, Bucky coming back into Cap's life, the kind of dynamic between them. I like the villain aspect of Robert Redford. I thought he was really interesting with the kind of, again, menacing tone that he had, and but he's such a sort of nice, sweet old grandpa type guy that when he turns, it's actually quite shocking. You wouldn't necessarily expect that to be happening in the film, and it's interesting the way they built on Steve Rogers, the way they took this ultimate kind of good guy, incredibly virtuous, and again had him alongside Black Widow, somewhat more grey area character, let's say. Certainly got a lot of, as you said, red in her ledger. And I like this sort of relationship between the two of them, the way they're getting on, and this testing of Steve Rogers in a more modern environment, how well he sticks to his principles and how well he stands by his his slightly out of touch, out of time type principles. And it's sweet to see, really, really fun, nice. It's a really good film. It has a lot to say about sort of government oversight, about the way that we're looked at, the way that we are kind of overseen by our governments, by surveillance, all that kind of stuff. And yeah, it's a very nice sort of resonant film to come out at that time. One of those great editions that built on the character work they'd already put in place and expanded on it, just grew on it and did a really, really good job. Really good job. So my number 6 is the original Iron Man. The film that kind of set everything off and got everything up and running. It's still one of my favorite films, and I love this film. I think it's great. It's a classic origin story. We get to know a character who you know, just through these opening scenes of him traveling along and, you know, with the other soldiers, you see his arrogance, you see his drinking, you see how kind of disrespectful he can be, how much everything's just a big joke to him. You see all of that, and it's great, great, great character work. You don't need to be told it, you're just seeing it. And I love that about the film. It does a great job of introducing the whole how did the Iron Man thing come about. It suffers, like a lot of these films do, from having a villain who is basically a carbon copy of your hero, but this was early on, and it's, I guess, forgivable because it's one of the first times we'd seen that, as opposed to like the 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th time that we've seen it in the MCU. But the idea of this villain who has been working behind your back the entire time, who kind of sold you out. The character of Obadiah himself is fantastic. I love Jeff Bridges. I think he does a really good job. The bald head really suits him. And, you know, he really is just a villainous, greedy, you know, weaponizing, money-grubbing a-hole. And I think for Tony Stark, it's that really nice start to his arc. It's not a complete arc by any means by the end of the film, but it's getting there. You can see the trend. You can see the, you know, the thought processes of how he kind of sees things playing out. And the way they end the film with, you know, the revelation, you know, just admitting who he is, that's nice. It's something you don't see from superheroes. Superheroes are usually all about keeping stuff to themselves and, you know, hiding their identity. But for him, it's, you know, it is a bit of that bravado still coming out, the cocksure arrogance that he, you know, he can protect anyone and he can't be touched. Something we see that gets a little bit rocked in Iron Man 3 and in Iron Man 2. But, you know, they're not very good films, so less said about them, the better. So my number 5 is Avengers Infinity War. This is a film that we've been building up to for you know, over a decade. It's, you know, a 3-hour incredible Infinity Stone gathering, gauntlet wielding, half the world, half the universe, half of existence killing monster of a film. And I can't believe how much they crammed into a film that still left me wanting to see more. The sheer number of characters in this film, you know, they've had some practice in the past. The Russo brothers have done a great job with this when they did this also with another film that I'll talk about in a second. But again, I find it still quite amazing to think about this. It's got some great moments. It builds with its characterization of one of my favorite films, which we'll get to in a second as well. The dialogue is great. The humor is fantastic. It's a, you know, it has this pathos, and it has these wonderful moments with Gamora and Thanos. The moments that are built up, and, you know, between Star-Lord when they're trying to get Thanos, and, you know, everyone's kind of super angry with Star-Lord for ruining everything, but it's absolutely in character. It's exactly the kind of thing that he would do. He's a hothead. He's the kind of guy that will punch someone in the face because that just feels right now, and it's good characterization. The way they then deal with the end of it, the lead into Captain Marvel, you know, everyone kind of disappearing and the dusting of the universe. I really like that. I think it was shocking to see at the time, even though we know they're all coming back, and you know a lot of them, if not all of them, will be coming back. But shocking to see in the cinema, a real gut punch, a real punch to the gut, to, you know, to set up stakes in a way that has never been seen in the MCU before. And for that, it absolutely has to receive a huge amount of credit. And it's really got me excited for Endgame. So looking forward to seeing that film. My number 4 is the first Guardians of the Galaxy film. Now, just before I talk about this, I'm going to give a quick shout out to Guardians of the Galaxy 2, which didn't make my list. I love Guardians 2. I think it's a great film. I love the introduction of Mantis, the fun they have with Drax. Some of my favourite scenes are in Guardians of the Galaxy 2, but it just couldn't make my list because overall it didn't hit the heights of the first film, and the first film set such an amazing bar that they just weren't able to, for me, to kind of to reach that again. The First Guardians film, to introduce these brand new characters, a raccoon, a human, a big hulking monster of a guy with no sense of humor, an assassin, a daughter of Thanos, and a tree. To achieve all of that in one film, brand new characters, is outstanding. It was such an amazing film just to see the trailers when they came out. Everyone was so hyped for this. It had great trailers, fabulous music. Hooked on a Feeling is still one of those songs that will be rattling around my head till the day I die. And it's really well used. The music's fantastically well used in the film. The start of the film, where you have Peter Quill walking into this environment, he's going to get the Infinity Stone, he's putting on his Walkman, and it kicks into the music, and you see everything you kind of need to know about this Star-Lord character. It's such a great cold opening to the film. The introduction of Peter Quill, introduction of Star-Lord, it's really wonderfully done. And again, it's a film that introduces this cosmic element. It introduces the wider galaxy without needing to rely really on anything much outside of characters like the Collector, anything much from the wider MCU. It stands on its own, and for that it does a great job. The humor is amazing in Guardians of the Galaxy. For me, topped by only one other film in the MCU, which again we'll get onto a second in terms of humor. But it's a great film. Loved it. Groot's fantastic. Rocket's fantastic. Love Drax. His comedy is great. I would catch it. His, that comedy, I love it. Deadpan, wonderful stuff. So my number 3 is the first Avengers film. This is still a film that I remember now. The hype for this film when it originally came out. When you'd had this build-up of these individual movies, we'd seen Thor, we'd seen Captain America, we'd seen Iron Man, we'd seen a couple of Iron Men, we'd seen the Hulk, we had these characters being introduced, Black Widow, Hawkeye had been introduced through the Thor films. We'd seen these characters kind of building up, and then to finally have them come together in the Avengers Initiative, bringing back Loki, again, one of the best villains that they have in the MCU. I loved Avengers. It's one of those films that I could go back to watch time and time again. The scenes with, the classic scenes, Hulk saying, I'm always angry, Mark Ruffalo, I'm always angry. That was a wonderful line, and it had these great crowd pleasing, cheer on moments, the swirling round of the camera as you come round all of them as they're, sort of doing their big Avengers pose. It's marvelous stuff. Shame kind of what they did to Hawkeye by taking him out of it for most of the film, but all in all, it's such a great example of how to do a setup and a big team movie. I couldn't say enough about the Avengers. It's one of those films that really has brought this all together for me. Having said that, one of my, it's not on my top 10 list. Ultron didn't make it onto my top 10 list. But that has one of my favorite scenes of all time. Just to mention that quickly, when Vision picks up Thor's hammer and hands it to him, I love that scene in Age of Ultron, but it couldn't make it into my list. It can't top the original Avengers, which was pure theatre. Pure edge of your seat, amazing box office theatre. So, number 2, nearing the end now. Number 2 is Captain America Civil War, or Avengers 2.5, depending on which way you want to look at it. Again, another film crammed in a huge number of characters. The Russo brothers did a fantastic job with this film. I love the introduction of Spider-Man in this film. I love the way we are, we are introduced to Black Panther as well. It does such a great job of, again, giving amazing screen time. And I do like the villain. Baron Zemo is a character who I think he's a little bit maligned. His plan is really grounded. He's just a former sort of spy type person who's a grieving father and grieving husband, and he is determined to bring some level of retribution back to these characters who, that as far as he's concerned, are just getting away with everything. I love that. I think it's a fantastic film. The airport fight scene is still one of those things that I couldn't say enough about. You know, when we have the introduction of Giant Man, you have Spider-Man coming face to face with Captain America, this team up, kind of the way they organize the sides of the civil war between these different characters. I thought it was fantastic, and just spectacle, but really, really well told and well done spectacle. Thoroughly deserves its position for me as number 2 on my list. And then we get to my number 1, and you should be able to guess what my number 1 is, because it's without doubt one of the funniest, one of the best, a complete reinvention of a character, and it's a film that I can watch in the MCU again and again and again and again, and I could watch it back to back. It's gorgeous, it's beautiful, it's Thor Ragnarok. So my number 1, Thor Ragnarok, Taika Waititi. I love that guy. I'm a huge fan of Taika's, from, you know, What We Do in the Shadows to Hunt for the Wilder People. I think this guy is amazing. Such a great sense of humor. He's amazing in the film as Korg. His you know, the build up to this film, where they're releasing these little vignettes of Thor talking, you know, sort of just hanging around with his roommate, was such a perfect introduction to what they were going to do with Thor as a character. And the way they followed that through in the film, I thought was just outstanding. The reinvention of Thor's character, the introduction of Valkyrie, the bringing back of Loki, but the character development of Thor no longer trusting Loki in the same way that he used to. All this is great. Jeff Goldblum as the Grandmaster is fantastic. He's completely 100% Goldblum. And I love the color palette. I love the music. I really like the score to the film. I think the score is great, but the color palette is outstanding. Hulk, you know, the Planet Hulk elements that they introduced are just wonderful to watch. And the idea of Odin having this dark past, where he'd hidden his past, and, you know, how do these great peaceful empires come about? You don't build great peaceful empires without a few wars along the way. And I thought Hela was great as well. I love Cate Blanchett. I think she's one of those actresses who I will watch anything she's in. I thought she was really good as Hela, and, you know, menacing, and I don't have any problems with the film. The good for this film thoroughly outweighs any of the bad, and I think the bad is generally just nitpicky stuff. Once you are in the mindset of saying this is a Taika Waititi film, a Taika Waititi film that does right by Thor, you know, something that the Russos then carried through into Infinity War, it does right by Thor. It creates a real niche for Thor, one that I wish they could have got to sooner as a sort of character developed for him, that is then playing through the rest of the MCU, you know, with his sweet rabbit interactions with Rocket. It's just such a great character development. And I was expecting very, very high things from Taika. The fact that he completely blew that away, to the point that I have seen this film 3 times in the cinema, and I've seen it at least 5 times at home. It's one of those films that if I'm just flicking through Netflix or, you know, whatever streaming service it happens to be on, I've got it on Blu-ray as well, obviously, but whatever streaming service I happen to be flicking through, I will, if I see that, I'll just pop it on. It's great stuff. And I haven't even talked about Hulk, really. Not really talked about Mark Ruffalo. He's great in this film. He's so good as both Banner and Hulk. You know, that sort of buddy cop style thing that they have going at some stages with Hulk and Thor, and with Banner and Thor is great stuff. And it's a film I just cannot talk enough about. It's standout for me. It's by far and away the most outstanding success of any film in the MCU. A complete film that has everything. Everything. And I will say this, Endgame would have to do something spectacular to get close to Thor Ragnarok. It would have to be just spectacular. I don't see it happening, but we'll see. Anyway, so that's my top 10 Marvel movies within the MCU. Hope you enjoyed this list. Let me know in the comment section what you think down below. Do you have any particular alternatives or different things that I didn't mention? I didn't mention Ant-Man, for example. Really good film, like it a lot, but just not there. Of the MCU films, the only ones I really don't like is Iron Man 2. I'm just not a big fan of that at all. I like all the others, really. Iron Man 2 is the only film in the MCU that I wouldn't watch again. No need to whatsoever. But all the rest of them, including Iron Man 3, Ant-Man and the Wasp, they're good films. Even Incredible Hulk, it's a good film. Perfectly serviceable, good film. Worth watching again, if you get a chance. Anyway, so let me know in the comment section down below what you think. Feel free to like, share and subscribe. Click the little bell to stay notified on upcoming videos that I'm working on. And if you need to get a hold of me, you can do so through my email address, which is juliettesnoir@gmail.com, or my website, juliettenoir.uk. Look forward to talking to you again soon. And as ever, bye. Bye.